You know that the herbicides and pesticides that plants produce themselves are actually in far more abundance than the herbicides and pesticides that we spray on them. The daily intake of natural pesticides is around 1,500 milligrams, and the daily intake of synthetic pesticides made by us is 0.09 milligrams. And these herbicides and pesticides that these plants produce, they are not healthy at all. You do not need them at all, and they cause tons of inflammatory signals in the process. Now, as crazy as it sounds, every single plant that you eat today, tomatoes, potatoes, doesn't matter what it is, they are nothing what they used to look like in human history. They are nothing what they even tasted like previously in human history as well. And so much to the point where you couldn't even tell that this originally used to be this. Now, there's a little secret there, and we're going to hold it off for a bit. Not only that, they didn't even taste nearly as pleasant as they do today. And this has to do with the fact that humans have been selectively breeding plants since the agricultural revolution. And they make foods such as corn going from this to this. And the first one in particular is barely even edible. That first one's name is teosinte, and it's originally what corn looked like. And well, I think we all know that corn doesn't look like that. In fact, it looks like quite a bit more like that. But that's not even all. And in fact, this happened to all plants. And I'll only help you with the first one so you can see. But this one is pretty difficult to tell. And tomatoes used to look like this. And now, obviously, I think we know tomatoes look a lot more like that. I heard this one is supposed to keep the doctor away, and it actually used to be this. And now that I think about it, actually, it definitely keeps the doctor there, in fact, because now it looks like that. Cucumbers used to look like this, and now they look like that. Can you guess what this one is? Because this one, a lot of people like, and now it actually looks like this. Can you guess what this one came from? That's right. It came from eggplants. Yeah, I don't think you could have guessed that. What about this one in particular? Well, if you guessed peppers, then you're right. Now, this one is supposed to be extra juicy, and you can probably guess this one because, yes, that was originally what watermelon looked like. Now it looks like this. Far more filled with that juicy flavor and a lot less of the fibrous flavor. Now I bet that you can guess this one. That's right. It's lettuce. And this one you'll 100% get because, of course, it's a pea plant. Now this one's just gotta be too easy, right? That's right. That's because it's grapes. Now, hopefully you're starting to see that this is what plants actually originally look like, even the slightly edible ones. And they look nothing like they do today. They aren't even close. And that has to do with selective breeding and basically genetic modification in the process during the entire time that the agricultural revolution was coming about. And every single one of these vegetables that I've named, or fruits, every single one in the world, in fact, are actually all toxic. Yes, that's right. And if you're really interested in the science behind that, I recommend you check out my chemotherapy video and how plants are basically no different than giving yourself a microdose of chemotherapy. Now, a quick example of that could be solanine or quercetin, but we'll just take solanine in this case. Now, solanine, just to name a few plants it's found in, are like tomatoes and potatoes, and solanine is known to basically have a chemotherapy response. And yes, it has been studied to be used for chemotherapy drugs. Now, this also applies to quercetin, which can be found in shallots and stuff. So if you're really interested in that, I recommend you check out my chemotherapy video. So yeah, but being organic, I mean, all that means is not being sprayed by herbicides and pesticides, right? So obviously that means organic is better because obviously they are not sprayed with herbicides and pesticides. And yes, but there's a little bit of a caveat there. You know that the herbicides and pesticides that plants produce themselves are actually in far more abundance than the herbicides and pesticides that we spray on them. Yes, they naturally produce those, and they have to do that because they need to defend themselves from rodents or insects. And the only way that they can do that is by, in turn, making themselves a little bit toxic. And by a little bit toxic, I mean very toxic, because they don't want to die. And in particular for animals, we fight a little bit more physically and mechanically, and plants fight chemically. So it's a little bit of a difference. Now, just to give a little bit of a view on how much natural pesticides plants make, the daily intake of natural pesticides is around 1,500 milligrams, and the daily intake of synthetic pesticides made by us is 0.09 milligrams. And these herbicides and pesticides that these plants produce, they are not healthy at all. You do not need them at all, and they cause tons of inflammatory signals in the process. So if I were you, I'd just avoid them completely. But what about the vitamins, or the minerals at least, from these plants? I mean, surely they must be healthy, right? Well, let's take a look at a couple examples. So first, we'll just start off with vitamin A. Now, beta carotene in particular is apparently a great source of vitamin A for you, and you can find beta carotene in tons and tons of plants. Now, let's just compare two sources of vitamin A that we can get. So first, we can get vitamin A in particular from sweet potato, which is the highest plant that offers vitamin A possible, otherwise in the form of beta carotene. And two, the second most common would be beef liver. Now, we will take the exact same amount in terms of grams, and we will compare them and see just how much vitamin A is in both of them. Now, if we take a look at the sweet potato, in terms of 100 grams of that sweet potato, it has around 9,406 micrograms of beta carotene. And what about the vitamin A in liver, beef liver in particular? Well, it actually only has 5,590 grams of retinol, which, there you go. That must mean that there is far more vitamin A in sweet potato. No, actually not. And that has to do with the fact that retinol and beta carotene are not the same thing. In fact, when you convert, or when your body anyways, tries to convert that beta carotene into retinol, it is unbelievably inefficient, and the conversion ratio is around 1 to 12. So that means for every 12 grams of beta carotene that you're ingesting, you're actually only getting 1 gram of vitamin A. So if we do a little bit of math for the sweet potato in particular, and we know that it's in the form of beta carotene, what we can do is we can say, okay, it has 9,406 micrograms of beta carotene. We will divide that number by 12. And in turn, dividing the number by 12 comes out to 783 micrograms of vitamin A. So the best source of vitamin A for plants has 783 micrograms of vitamin A. And that's if we compare it to the best source of vitamin A in animals, and that's beef liver. And in turn, that has 5,590 micrograms of vitamin A. So that means you're getting 7 times the amount of vitamin A just from eating beef liver in comparison to eating sweet potato. And it isn't even close. Now, the crazy part is this doesn't just apply to vitamin A. This actually applies to almost every single vitamin, actually. This applies to vitamin A, otherwise known as retinol, which we just covered, vitamin B1, vitamin B2, vitamin B3, vitamin B5, vitamin B6, B7, B9, B12, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K. And yes, every single one of those sources are found predominantly, again, in meat. And that has to do with the fact that they are more, one, bioavailable, and two, in turn, that makes it more useful or more usable by the body in the first place. Now, there's one more in particular that you might be thinking about, and that's probably vitamin C. And yes, vitamin C is important, although let's look at the process of what exactly vitamin C does in the first place. And we will see very, very quickly that even when you're eating only meat, you actually don't need much vitamin C. And that has to do with the fact that it acts as an antioxidant. Now, I've talked a lot about reactive oxygen species in the past, so if you're really interested in that, you can go check out my previous video. But if you are on a high carb diet in particular, then I do recommend supplementing with extra vitamin C. And the reason has to do with the fact that on a high carb diet, you are exacerbating and increasing dramatically the amount of inflammatory signals your body is encountering. So to reduce the amount of inflammatory signals that your body is interacting with, you would need to increase the vitamin C because it acts as an antioxidant. So from this video, we talked about the origins of agricultural plants, pesticides and herbicides, and bioavailability of plants in general. Now, before watching this video, you might have thought that organic plants are healthy and natural, but that actually every single plant, that especially today, is genetically modified. You might have thought that herbicides and pesticides that we spray on them are contaminating the plants, but now you have learned that actually the herbicides and pesticides that we spray on them is nothing compared to the natural herbicides and pesticides that they produce themselves. And thirdly, you might have learned that even though the nutritional value of plants may be somewhat high in some circumstances, the only one being vitamin C, that one, you don't actually need much vitamin C if you're not exposing yourself to many inflammatory signals, and two, that every single vitamin is much, much higher, exorbitantly higher in animal sources than it is in plant sources. Now, if you're interested in more science videos like this, I recommend you check out my Science Behind Carnivore playlist, as it will explain this in a lot more detail. And I actually go into a lot of biochemistry, explaining lipid peroxidation. I explain the glucose equilibrium and why glucose is actually very, very dangerous and damaging for you. And you want to avoid it as much as you possibly can, and you want to allow your body to create as much glucose as it needs, and you never want to give your body excess glucose. Yes, absolutely crazy, but if you look at science behind it, it definitely shows. So thanks for watching. If you're interested in more videos like this, then please let me know in the comments below. If you have any particular video ideas, then again, let me know in the comments below. If you like the video, then please give it a like. It helps the video and spread the video a lot, and share this with anybody that you're interested, who might think that this video in particular is interesting. And if you want to see more videos like this, then subscribe to the channel, because I plan on making a ton of more videos. And yeah, so without further ado, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.